Civil society, you have to unmute yourself.
Ya, o comienzo.
First, what we can see is that the problems around the national protection system has to do with taking on this matter as a public policy. We need continuity, that is to say, this is to be taken on as a state matter. So if there's a change in administration, things are not going to change. Second, we're going to have the correct legal framework. Also, we need to have a budget that is enough to have enough money, because the allocation of a budget is like a thermometer to decide what kind of will the state has in order to protect human rights defenders. We know that there is more budget allocated to military actions than to human defenders and human rights. So we want all the branches of government to work together with the victims' organizations in the framework of the protection mechanism. So we want the state of Honduras to commit itself to a number of things. For example, to reassess the national protection system, this with two purposes. First, to separate responsibilities from all the different actors, and also to create specific recommendations for the mechanism to become operational, and to do it in an efficient manner to protect individuals both individually and collectively. I think that international cooperation would provide support to the state of Honduras. All of these weaknesses are still there. However, there are defenders in Honduras that are being killed, that are being displaced, and that are being attacked. Good morning. I'm Carlos Jimenez from the Farm of Justice for People. To address specifically some of the matters raised by the commissioners, well, Commissioner Bernal asked about the actions that the government must take to solve the basic problem, the substantial problem. I cannot give you an absolute answer, but for starters, I have to say that we need a high-level interinstitutional coordination. That is why we asked for the highest level representatives to be present in the meetings of the Council. That legal obligation has not been met. The institutions that make up the national protection system are also part of the violations of human rights defenders' rights. This is a pattern that we see. The Public Prosecutor's Office persecute human rights defenders who have been recognized by the state under the national protection system. And at the same time, they ignore the reports and the complaints submitted by these human rights defenders in connection with environmental and human rights matters in their territories. The problem that we have with budget is a serious problem. The budget is limited. The budget is not independent. And the Protection Directorate cannot dispose of its budget freely. There's another violation of the law that has to do with confidentiality. So when you need to implement protection measures and you yourself need to buy or rather you need to buy, one needs to buy cameras and things like that, you have to go through first public procurement. So the information, it becomes public, right? The information of the beneficiaries of the measures becomes public, and this violates the principles of confidentiality, and it goes against the rights of these beneficiaries. We need a cross-sectional view, specifically gender mainstreaming. Fausia, one of the defenders in the Onawa territory, was the subject, was the victim rather, of sexual attack, and she said, "Okay, my defender needs to be a woman. My protector needs to be a woman. My police protector needs to be a woman." But no, it was actually a man, and every time that they came into contact, she was re-victimized. So we have other problems in the application of the measures. The beneficiaries oftentimes are not informed as to who their police liaison is. Sometimes a police officer just comes up. Thank you very much, honorable members of the Commission, for the question posed. I wanted to echo what was being said a moment ago. The mechanism has a protocol to address issues of gender mainstreaming and also intersectionality. However, this protocol, it appears, is not being used appropriately, specifically because the granting of the measures entails a bias because it does not take into account the realities of justice operators and human rights defenders and journalists. So I will put to the Commission and the President perhaps to give some time to the representative of the High Commissioner to finish her presentation, because that presentation was interrupted because of technical reasons that did not have anything to do with the office itself. So we would like for her intervention to be completed.
Thank you very much. We do have the time for the representative of the High Commission at the end of this, the state's intervention. So, so if civil society, you have something else to say, please do that, because we do have the time assured for the representative of the High Commissioner. If not, I will turn over to the representatives of the state.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Very briefly, I want to say that our office established the assessment that were given to us. There is not a lot of public information in connection with the public protection system, although the law establishes that there has to be co-responsibility between the private parties and the authorities. This co-responsibility institutionally has not been followed in practice. So we have to look at all levels, regardless of the nature of the institutions. Unfortunately, there has been a lack of institutional commitment. So that is why strategies cannot be adopted to solve specific problems. There have been difficulties to have a space for discussion. Also, there are some failures that we have identified in our assessment. And there is an insufficiency of financial resources for the protection measures system, and there is no contextual analysis. The General Directorate for the Protection System does not conduct a contextual analysis to assess risk on the basis of what happens in the country. Now, most of the measures that are adopted in the committee are police measures. So this places the beneficiaries in a situation of greater risk, because oftentimes police officers are the ones who are the aggressors. And sometimes we have heard that the state does not have what they need to adequately provide the protection. To end, I have some general recommendations in connection with institutional strengthening plan that we established at the time. It's 125 recommendations. We have to strengthen the national protection system governance structure. We need to strengthen institutional practices when it comes to protection. We need to strengthen methodologies, protocols, create databases. We are going to need social monitoring in order to protect civil society within the national protection system. And of course, the purpose is to support the system and strengthen it. We need to have the highest level state policy to reduce risk factors for the individuals. Also, to wrap up, I wanted to recognize the admirable and valiant work done by human rights defenders. Sometimes they expose things at the risk of their own lives and their families' lives, and they're trying to defend democracy. This has to be recognized from the highest political levels and echelons of the country. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in their hands is not just a piece of paper, but it is reality. The mechanism was created 8 years ago, and structural factors exist. But at this time, what we need is urgent measures in order to guarantee and ensure human rights in the country. Our office reiterates its full support to provide technical support to the state and to the civil society to ensure the operations of the system of for protection. Thank you so much for letting me finish, my president.
Thank you very much. And now over to Representative of the State. You have 10 minutes. We're a bit over time, but you do have your time, your 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Everyone present here today, members of the civil society organizations. First of all, I wanted to say that the state is committed not to engage in any kind of retaliatory act against any of the individuals that have come to this hearing from the members of civil society organizations and the representatives, at least from the executive branch of government. We can assure them that no stigma will be placed on them and no retaliation will be waged against them. Of course, I can only speak about the executive branch of government. Our president has very clearly established, and in a very courageous manner, she has said that public institutions have been destroyed by different actors, for example, criminal actors that have made it so that the government has come to the international bodies to ask for support. So what we need now is to try to fight in order to recover our institutional spaces. We don't want these spaces to be spaces for threats. We don't want them to be spaces for legislation that may make more precarious the rights of human communicators or justice operators, specifically in the field of human rights. And we don't want the judiciary to become a criminalizing body against these individuals.
That's what we're working on. And we are trying to buttress the strength of institutional measures that we can take. I'm going to give the floor to the representative of the Attorney General here. Dear friends, Madam Chair, Commissioners, the state of Honduras commits through the Prosecutor's Office of the Republic to keep a very close eye on any situation that risks endangering the human rights of any citizen of our homeland. As you well know, democracy has been gravely injured over the last many years because, in fact, I'm going to say it flat out, we were considered a failed state. We were considered a narco state, the country club of drug lords, and the free rein to a number of lords that lorded it upon all kinds of human rights activists who had good reason to fear, and not least from the state itself. So we have tried to bend over backwards to rectify the situation. We are taking a hard look at our laws, and in fact, we've asked, as I'm sure you're well aware, for technical assistance from this commission, technical and legal assistance in a number of different areas, beginning with the Congress itself. But we've also spoken about using criminal law in crimes against honor, in, for instance, the prosecution, and not to say persecution, that there might have been against journalists. And we are committed to changing that and ensuring and pleading for this before the Congress, ensuring that the law states. Let me give the floor to the representative of human rights. Well, from the Office of Secretary of State, we have indeed called upon the National Congress to set aside the penal punishment that affected crimes against honor that were so-called. As you well know, commissioners, there is, in fact, as I speak, a very heated national, if not international, debate with regard to this matter presently before the Congress. That speaks to, in fact, the concern some of us have by the measures people are blocking to proceed with a more modern approach to some issues like sexual descriptions. And what we want is a broad understanding of human rights under the aegis of the law that this hearing is here specifically to address. I've received a couple of questions, and one has come up time and again. What is the specific mechanism that we've come up with to make a difference? The High Commissioner began with a diagnosis. We already had a pretty clear idea of what we needed to do to improve matters, what the situation was on the ground. But we have asked for permission from this office and are counting on that to assess the present situation more carefully and set forth a plan of action on that basis. So we hope within this hearing to be able to count on the support of this committee to set up a new and a better mechanism for protection. We are determined in the state to ensure the optimum functioning of this mechanism. We don't know whether that's still an option. And frankly, we're still fighting to recover some shred of institutionality worthy of the name. We're still working on it. Not done yet by any means. But we feel it's so important that the system as a whole needs to be strengthened, beginning with the Council. And just before this hearing, I was in touch with the President of the Republic and the Attorney General. And I can assure you that there is a commitment at the highest possible level to ensure the highest possible level of representation so that this country may be represented with the due quorum. And with the prosecutor's office, we hope then that we will have much more active and patent goodwill than we've had in a very, very long time. Now, another question that arises continually has to do with the concerns that José Luis Caballero, the distinguished rapporteur, pointed out. The single budget point that we're talking about is the budget of the state. Now, the different trusts, fideicomisos in Spanish, had helped to move certain commitments. But guess what? They were a fig leaf, which means what it is meant to mean, where the money looked to be spent properly, but guess what? It wasn't. And it was siphoned off to this interest or the other interest. We want to be sure that the budget of the state, the Treasury Department, and the Finance Department, which was drained dry in the past, has a great deal to recover. Alas, with that, as you might imagine, it didn't happen by magic. It happened by dint of very deliberate corruption, graft, and flat-out theft. The so-called precautionary measures were not at all what they said they were. So we want to be sure that the Secretariat for Human Rights can sign off on any protection measure that is agreed on, and there will be in the Human Rights Committee personnel allocated, hired and deliberately assigned to the text. In the past, that hasn't been the case, and we're not there yet, by the way. This is a conversation that is ongoing with the Secretary of State, which is the highest level that is allocated to us on a daily basis. But I do want to say up front, I couldn't agree more. Impunity can no longer be tolerated, 100%. And I said it before this trip, and when interim authorities were appointed. Give me just 20 seconds in terms of the intersectionally. I want to give the floor to my colleague who is on that task. Good afternoon, Honorable Commission. With regard to the protocol in question, let me say that indeed I confirm that it is being applied, and we know it has to be reinforced. And there will be new protocols as and when necessary with a specific human rights and gender focus. This is also being worked on with security and most especially with regard to the role of the police. Thank you. Now, we recognize as a state, and by the way, this is something that our Secretariat for Human Rights have absolutely signed off on. There is a huge, nobody is kidding themselves here, there is a huge, huge challenge in working with the police. No question. And this was affirmed yesterday when we spoke to the issue. Thank you.
To close by appreciating the participation of representatives of civil society, human rights defenders, and the representatives of the state, the Office for the High Commissioner of Human Rights. We had some technical problems, but I think you did get to complete your presentation. And of course, the commissioners and the special rapporteur here. There seems to be a high degree of consensus in the first of all, in the commitment on the protection of human rights defenders, but also consensus in the analysis, in the diagnosis of the state of health of the protection mechanisms. And I think that consensus is that there are deficits which need to be addressed and need to be addressed quickly and efficiently. I just want to say that we do really always recommend, as the Commission, that the state engages in continuous dialogue and cooperation with representatives of civil society organizations, and does that in a structured way, and also includes representatives of civil society organizations on mechanisms that are for their protection and their defense. And as I end, I would also want to assure the state of Honduras and the representatives of civil society that the Commission is here to support the promotion and protection of human rights. We are here to provide technical services, technical cooperation, and to work collaboratively with you as well as with the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. Please do call on us, and we continue to monitor the situation in Honduras as closely as we do everywhere else in the Americas and the Caribbean. Thank you very much, and I now bring the hearing to an end, and I'm going to do what President Macaulay does, ring the bell.